Howdy, folks. That's not good. Howdy, folks. I've never done the handheld thing before. Hopefully that's okay. So if you haven't seen it yet, I released another sample library. It's another one in the Hearth Hollow world, and it's voices this time. If you haven't seen the walkthrough, go check that out, because in that walkthrough, I mentioned that I made this library with two very close friends of mine. I didn't really go into any great detail about these people themselves. I wanted to give them their due in their own video. I met LILLI and Chase, these two singers, online during the pandemic of all times and places. The heart of our meeting was music, and so we've talked shop and shared ideas, and LILLI and I have even put together a folk record that we did entirely remotely. It started as a fun way of playing musical tag with each other, and it ended up being pretty special. Gave him a call a little while ago, and we just kind of reminisced and talked about the process and the library, and I wanted to get their take on things. I wanted to see where they were coming from with all this stuff. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lily Farfaro.
I'm Chase Noseworthy. I'm a singer-songwriter.
I'm new, relatively speaking, in my life to writing music. I wrote poems first, and just recently I started putting them to music. I'm one of those people where if you get a bunch of people in a room singing together, it doesn't really matter what they're singing, but I'm gonna cry. Like, it hits something so primally joyful. There's something historically beautiful about it. There's something anthropologically, sociologically beautiful about it. And then also just as a thinking, feeling person, I can't help but feel.
I think I sort of grew up in love with folk music because growing up, my dad, being from Newfoundland, where I live now, would play me Newfoundland folk music, which was very inspired by Irish folk music. For me, music at its core has always been about storytelling.
Rosie went down to grief.
So, we're talking about folk a lot, and hopefully that's not getting tiresome, but, there isn't really one that does the trick. There's not one genre that's the best at telling stories. And I'm not about to pivot here and say, but, folk actually kind of is the best. These styles and genres are emergent in the sense that they come about as a result of circumstance. What becomes the more interesting thing to do is to look at each of these genres and kind of identify what part of a person those are doing a good job capturing. That's a really fun game to play. That's where I'll bring folk back in, because folk I often think of as pretty quiet and close. When things are really close to you, that's when you start to see the sort of private imperfections, like a smudge, fingerprints, little scratches and wear. And when things are meant to be very quiet and still, that's when you start to notice rustling and trembling, and when a breath catches in someone's throat. And there's a lot of that kind of inward looking in folk.
I was talking about this sort of imperfection of folk music that just sort of reminded me in the process of how we allowed certain imperfections as a feature. Like, whenever I'm hearing an instrumental guitar piece, acoustic guitar piece, I love the little bits of fret buzz or just the finger lifting off the string and the creaking of the wood and things like that. And that's what makes it sound human.
And it's not really just creaky guitars, obviously, it's voices too. If you think about something like operas tell stories masterfully, but boy, does that feel different, when you're watching an opera and someone will be singing about vulnerable, personal experience, but they're singing it louder than a person can shout. It's almost absurd and ecstatic in that way.
The only sort of technical training I have as a vocalist is project to the back of the room, open your mouth wide, and all the sort of choral cues that you get. But when I'm sitting alone in my bedroom recording a song, that's not how I'm singing.
The most important thing about this library is how we made it, which was loose and joyful. And I mentioned that in the walkthrough that I asked LILLI and Chase, don't take this too seriously. Don't overthink it.
it just felt like seeing old friends again.
I hope I'm not stretching into the maudlin or the abstract too hard here, but I feel like that stuff is important for the sound of this thing.
Meaningful, deep conversations and shitty Irish accents.
It was late at night. We had been alone in a very large old church for a long period of time. There were some antics.
Dude, just like taking breaks to go back into the kitchen in the church and like make tea with lemon and ginger and like those things that were basically just Hot Pockets, but you kept trying to explain them in a way where you could have just said they were Hot Pockets.
I mean, yeah, they were like trying to be fancier Hot Pockets, but it was just a Hot Pocket.
It was just a Hot Pocket.
I think the shadows are starting to get long, so I should probably go. But thanks for sticking around and stopping by here. And really, if you think the library is your cup of tea, or if you're just curious to see what it sounds like, yeah, go check out that walkthrough or the demos on Spitfire's site. I'll link everything as usual. You'd be supporting us, but it really matters to me that this gets into the hands of just a lot of people. I want you guys to use it, and tell stories with it. That's why we made it.
It was a bunch of people who love each other and got together into a space and used our voices together. That's the heart of this. Whatever they're going to be using it for, that's what's going to be imbued into it.